So far in our learning targets, we have not had to deal with the distributive property. So that's what this learning target is about, is using the distributive property when possible to solve multi-step equations. So let's remember what the distributive property looks like. Let's start with numbers, and then we're going to go back to the algebra after that. So with numbers, we would have something like 5 times the quantity x plus 3. So we would distribute the 5 to the x, so that's 5 times x, and then I would distribute the 5 to the 3, so we would have the plus 5 times 3, and that would equal 5x plus 15. Now let's suppose that we have 3 times the quantity x minus 4. It is most beneficial for everybody to change the minus to be plus a negative, because that's what subtraction is, adding the opposite. So if we do that, it makes it easier to see the distributive property is 3 times x plus 3 times negative 4. So then I would get 3x plus negative 12. I could also write that as 3x minus 12 if I wanted to. There's nothing wrong with either one of those. So now let's go back and fill in the algebra. The algebra looks like this. If you have a times the quantity b plus c, that is equal to a times b plus a times c. Alright, so let's take a look at this example right here. We're going to simplify 12 times the quantity 2x plus 3. So I'm going to distribute the 12 to the 2x. And then I'm going to distribute the 12 to the 3. So it looks like that. And my answer would be 24x plus 36. Let's take a look at it with fractions. So here I have 20 times 3/4 x plus 20 times 1/5. And our work with fractions should be such that we can easily cross simplify now. So the simplification is 20 over 4 is equal to 5 over 1. And over here, the 20 over 5 becomes 4 over 1. If you are still struggling with that, please ask to work with me so that you become very fluent with that. So now I have 5 times 3x, so that gives me 15x, plus over here we have 4 times 1, so that's just 4. And notice what I got had no more fractions in them. So we're going to use this idea that we can multiply by a number to get rid of fractions. And you'll see that in example 6. But let's start off with example 1. We're going to do 3 times 5x. And I'm going to change this minus to be plus a negative. And I'm going to plus 3 times negative 2. Equals 39. So now I'm going to draw my line, and I'm going to simplify that left-hand side. So we get 15x plus negative 6 is equal to 39. And now it's just like we've done in the past. So I'm going to add the opposite of negative 6, so that's plus 6 to both sides. So that gives me 15x that drops down there. These cancel, and now I have 45 there. Divide both sides by 15, and that leaves me with 1x equaling 3. That's my answer. In my calculator, I would check it by doing 3 parentheses, 5 times 3 minus 2, and I want to make sure that the calculator says that that equals 39. Alright, let's move on to number 2. Here I'm going to distribute 7 times 2x plus 7 times 5 equals 161. So I'm going to draw my line for my balance. I get 14x plus 35 is equal to 161. Subtract 35 from both sides to get rid of addition and subtraction. 14x drops down, and 161 minus 35 is 126. Divide both sides by 14. We are left with 1x on the left, and 126 divided by 14 is 9 when we use the calculator. So on the calculator check, you are going to type in 7 times the quantity 2 times 9 plus 5, and that should equal 161 on your calculator. For number 3, we're going to distribute the negative 3 to both of those, so we get negative 3 times 4x plus negative 3 times 8 is equal to 84. So that means negative 12x plus negative 24 is equal to 84. To get rid of the negative 24, I have to add 24 to both sides. So that leaves us with negative 12x because that drops down. These cancel, and I have 108 over here. Divide both sides by negative 12. I'm left with 1x is equal to negative 9 when I use my calculator to do that division. I'm going to leave you on your own to know how to do the check. Number 4 is a very important lead into number 5. When you see this negative in front of parentheses, you must understand that that really is a negative 1. So now, knowing that, we use the distributive property, and we have negative 1 times 3x. Remember, I'm going to change my minus sign here to be plus a negative. So then I would get plus a negative 1 times negative 2. So again, I took this negative 1 times 3x and this negative 1 times the negative 2 that you see there when I changed it to adding the opposite. And that equals negative 7. So when I simplify this, we get negative 3x plus, and a negative 1 times a negative 2 is a positive 2, equals negative 7. Subtract 2 from each side. That drops down to be negative 3x. These cancel to be 0. And negative 7 plus negative 2 is negative 9. Divide both sides by negative 3 to get the variable by itself. So I'm left with 1x is equal to a positive 3. I'm going to leave the check for you to do on your own. Number 5 is one of the most commonly undone problems. Sorry, it's very common to get this one wrong. So again, we need to make sure that we put a -1 out front. I'm going to change that minus to be plus a negative. So I'm going to distribute a -1 to the 6x and a -1 to the 4. So I have 3x plus -1 times 6x plus -1 times 4. And then I'm going to work on simplifying that. So I have 3x plus -6x plus -4 equals 11. Now what I see is like terms. 3x plus -6x gives me -3x plus -4 equals 11. Then I'm going to add 4 to both sides to get rid of the -4. So that drops down to be -3x. These cancel to be 0. And I have 15 over here. Divide both sides by -3. And x equals -5 is my answer. I'm going to leave the check up to you. This last example doesn't have to be done the way I'm showing it to you, but most students don't like to work with fractions. So if we multiply by the lowest common denominator, so let's look at the denominators. 3, this denominator would be a 1, same with this one, and then a 2. So the lowest common denominator is 6. Now watch what happens when I multiply both sides of the equation by 6. So I use the distributive property. 6 times x over 3 plus 6 times 4 is equal to 6 times 5 plus, and remember I'm going to change this minus sign to be plus a negative, 6 times -x over 2. Watch what happens here. With my knowledge of cross-canceling, the 6 and the 3 canceled to become 2. And over here, the 6 and the 2 canceled to become 3. So when I simplify this now, I get 2 times x, and there's no more fraction. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 5 is 30. And then over here, I have 3 times -x, so that's -3x. And I don't have any more fractions to work with. And most of you will find that easier to do. So let's go ahead and finish this off. We need to get the variables on the same side. So I'm going to add 3x to both sides to get rid of the -3x. So we have 5x plus 24 drops down is equal to the 30 that drops down here, and these equal 0. So that goes away. Now I need to subtract 24 from each side. The 5x drops down. 30 minus 24 is 6. Divide both sides by 5. X is equal to 6 over 5. So we could put 6/5 as my answer. I just would like for you to answer in fraction form when these are given in fractions, but it would not be wrong to turn that into a decimal, which would be 1.2. And we are done.